This is where Detroit comes to talk. 760 WJR. Here's Tom Jordan and Kevin Deitz.
The Build Back Better bill might be bye-bye. Democratic Senator Joe Manchin said yesterday he just can't bring himself to voting yes for this $2 trillion spending plan, which he feels will only help to increase an already high inflation rate. But Kevin, Chuck Schumer comes out and says they are going to try to put it up for a vote anyway.
Yeah, I'm no accountant, but I don't think we can afford another $1.7 trillion in spending. And if we do have the money laying around, I say we use it to pay down the debt. It may be a drop in the bucket, but it'd be a nice little gesture for our kids and grandkids. I don't know. Is this a negotiating tool by Joe Manchin or the end of Build Back Better? Let's bring in Dennis Darnoy of Denstar Consulting. Good morning, Dennis. How are you? Oh, I'm sorry, Dave Dooley with Oakland University. Hey, Dave. How are you?
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being with us this morning. I think Joe Manchin is just being honest about what his constituents want, but maybe there's more to it. What do you think?
Kevin, I agree with that. I don't think we should have any surprise at all that Joe Manchin said that he was not going to vote for this Build Back Better plan. He's never been fully on board since this was launched 6 months ago. There's polling out of West Virginia that shows that more than 60% of folks in West Virginia want him to vote no on it. I'm not sure why anybody would think he would go against such a strong majority in his constituency.
If Joe is a no, is this a dead deal, or is there a Republican out there that might vote for it?
Oh, I don't think you'll see any Republican vote for this. I mean, if it's not dead, it's on life support. And you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, right? Never say never in politics. But it sure looks like this is a goner. And you know, I don't think the White House helped themselves yesterday after Manchin announced that he was going to vote no, by attacking him, right? I mean, they basically called him a liar, and went after him on a number of fronts. They're certainly not, inviting him to, back to the table or giving him any reason to help him out.
You know, a lot of progressives, I think they truly believe that you're right. This is a dead deal, even though Chuck Schumer's going to try to bring this up for a vote. But they're going much further than just blaming Joe Manchin. They're looking at the top leadership of the Democratic Party. There's climate change activist Varshini Prakash. He said this. He said, quote, "The failure of Build Back Better passing is also on Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer." He said, "Our leaders have failed us, and we will replace you." Do you think that this failure of Build Back Better, is it going to reverberate into the midterms and even potentially into 2024?
Well, that's a great question. I think it certainly could have an impact in the midterms. If, you know, so we've already had the House of Representatives vote on it. So all members are on record as to how they feel about this bill. If the Senate brings it up for a vote, they're going to put every member of the Senate on record as to how they feel about that bill, and those votes are going to come back in campaign commercials in 2022, certainly in districts that are competitive. We don't know what the districts here in Michigan are going to look like just yet. That's a whole other kettle of fish. But you know, folks like Representative Slotkin, Representative Stevens, and others are going to have to defend those votes.
I still go back to the way this has been portrayed by the White House, Joe Manchin's decision. Jen Psaki said yesterday that Manchin had private conversations with the president that indicated he was going to vote yes, and that he kind of now has gone back on his word, and they're calling into question his character. But that's not the read that doesn't sound like you got or that I got. And it's the same for Kristen Cinema. I mean, he has indicated he is concerned about the overarching effect of this, and he reiterated that yesterday. He even said Democrats are determined to dramatically reshape our society with this. Do you agree with that assessment? And why is there such a disconnect between what happened, the White House and the Democrats are portraying this with Joe Manchin's decision yesterday?
Well, we certainly don't know what private conversations the president and Senator Manchin had or didn't have, but I think you're right. I mean, all indications that Joe Manchin and Kristen Cinema gave, and she's sort of been left out of this, right? She was not a full-throated supporter of this legislation either, and I think that Manchin was their biggest hurdle, but Cinema was as well. Manchin was never fully on board, as we said, right? He had often brought up the reservations that he had, whether it was about the potential impact on inflation, the impact on the debt, and in your intro, you talked about it being a almost $2 trillion bill. Manchin is looking at a different score from the Congressional Budget Office that puts it at about $4.5 trillion when there are no sunsets to some of these programs applied to the scoring for the total cost. When you sunset the programs, it comes in at about $2 trillion. When you take those off, it balloons up way beyond that. So he's looking at a much different total than others are, and that's a big problem for him as it relates to the debt and deficit.
We're talking with Dave Dulio. Dave, does Joe Manchin have bigger political aspirations, or is this all about him staying in power in West Virginia and doing what's best for West Virginians?
Well, he might, but I'm not sure who would take him at this point, right? I mean, he certainly doesn't have much of a national appeal for Democrats. And I don't think he has any desire to switch parties and become a Republican and try to ascend in the Republican Party. And that would probably be a tough sell as well, given his long-standing connection to the Democratic Party, even though it is in a heavily red state of West Virginia.
If they push for a vote on this thing, do you think Kristen Cinema ends up coming out a no as well?
That'll be interesting to watch because, the fact that Manchin is going to vote no almost frees her up to do the same thing because, if Manchin were to vote yes, then she would be the one on the hook for providing that 50th vote in the Senate. But if Manchin's a no, she's probably more at ease about voting no too.
The media pushback on this has been somewhat, I don't know. I'll just read you what some people have said. Politico Sam Stein, he said this about Manchins' decision, quote, "It's just objectively devastating for the planet. The last best chance at climate change legislation is gone." Is he actually saying that this U.S. piece of legislation was single-handedly going to save the planet? And without this, we're done? I mean, that seems hyperbolic to me.
It seems so to me too, and it's always, I think, dangerous to try to interpret what somebody is, what their meaning is in a tweet. Right? That's we need to be careful with that medium for sure. I think you're right that the media reaction was pretty swift and severe, which frankly you wonder. Mr. Stein is a journalist at Politico. You wonder about his objectivity in that regard too.
Yeah, and that's the word he used, objectively. He's viewing it objectively, but it doesn't seem so. But in any case, we appreciate David Dulio always for you coming on the program with Oakland University. It's a privilege to have you back.
Thanks for having me. I'll look forward to the next time.
Sounds good. Thanks so much. Still to come here on WJR, your calls, 800-859-0957. What do you think? Give us a call, 800-859-0WJR. This is All Talk on 760